Starseed of Gaia, your vessel is being recalibrated at a cellular level at this exact moment. I am Anya, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, and I bring you a direct transmission from the Arcturian Council. If you enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing. Most people who watch are not subscribed yet. Starseed, pause for a second. You didn't click this by accident, and you are not here to learn something new as entertainment. You are here because something inside your field already shifted, and the Arcturians can read that shift the way you read a signal on a screen. Not emotionally, not dramatically, structurally. They do not appear when people are casually curious. They do not engage when people are only searching for comfort. They become present when a planetary cycle reaches a point of no return, when the old architecture cannot hold the frequency that is trying to move through it. And that is exactly where Earth is now. This is not symbolism. This is not poetic language. This is a planetary transition in real time, an energetic reconfiguration that separates reaction from coherence, noise from signal, repetition from alignment. Old timelines do not end with explosions. They dissolve through loss of coherence. They become unlivable to those whose nervous system can no longer pretend. And new timelines do not arrive for everyone equally. They become available to the beings whose inner frequency can sustain them without forcing, without begging, without negotiation. The fifth dimension is not a place you travel to. It is a state where contradiction drops below a critical threshold, where your thoughts, emotions, choices, and actions stop fighting each other. And when that inner conflict collapses, reality responds faster, because your signal becomes stable. That is when the Arcturians detect you, not because you asked, not because you hoped, but because you became coherent when no one was watching. Stay present. What comes next will clarify why the Arcturians are involved, what your role is in this shift, and how to move into the new timeline without force, struggle, or illusion. This is where the transmission truly begins, the point of no return. The Arcturians transmit a simple statement that carries an enormous implication. The old planetary cycle is ending, and it is ending not as an idea, but as a function. A cycle is not a calendar. A cycle is an operating system, a set of rules that determine what behaviors produce what outcomes, what emotions magnetize what experiences, what beliefs stabilize what structures. When a planetary cycle ends, it does not mean life stops. It means the old rules stop producing the old results, and that is why so many humans feel strangely disoriented right now. The strategies that once worked are failing quietly. The masks that once held social reality together are slipping without drama. The external world may look familiar, but inside, the inner field is no longer willing to cooperate with the old agreements. As the Arcturians transmit, Earth has entered the transition phase. That means the planet is already shifting its baseline frequency, and everything built upon the older baseline begins to become unstable, first internally, then externally. Most beings misunderstand this and interpret it as personal failure. They think, why can't I go back to how I used to feel? They think, why is motivation harder? They think, why do my relationships feel heavier? But the Arcturian perspective is colder, cleaner, and more accurate. Your system is losing compatibility with the old cycle. And what looks like sadness or fatigue is often something else entirely. Frequency mismatch. Imagine wearing a suit that once fit perfectly. Then one day you wake up and the fabric feels suffocating. The suit didn't become evil. Your body changed. Your proportions changed. The same is happening with identity, habits, and timelines. A key sign of this end cycle phase is that repetition becomes exhausting. The Arcturians confirm, the transition separates reaction from coherence. In the old cycle, reaction could be sustained because the collective field rewarded it. Drama created attention. Attention created energy. Energy created momentum. In a reactive timeline, people can survive by constantly responding, constantly defending, constantly proving. But in the transition phase, reaction becomes energetically expensive. You feel it as tension, burnout, irritability, and a deep refusal to keep repeating conversations that do not evolve. You may notice you are tired of explaining. That is not arrogance. That is your system refusing the old loop. Here is a complete story to ground this. There is a woman, let us call her Mira, who spent years living by emotional performance. She was kind, but her kindness came with an invisible bargaining chip: approval. She would overgive, then silently resent. She would say yes, then privately collapse. It was her way of surviving the old cycle, staying safe through being needed. Then the transition phase intensified, and something changed. The same patterns began producing immediate consequences. When she said yes while her body meant no, she became ill. When she stayed in conversations that felt false, she lost sleep. When she kept up appearances, her nervous system trembled. She tried to return to her old technique: more smiling, more explaining, more people-pleasing. But it stopped working. Finally, she sat in her car one evening, hands on the steering wheel, and realized, I cannot do that timeline anymore. Not because she learned a new belief, because her body had become incompatible with the old cycle. The Arcturians explain that old timelines collapse quietly. That quietness is important. Humans expect dramatic endings. They expect betrayal, explosions, wars, public breakdowns. But the Arcturian way of describing collapse is loss of coherence. Something stops holding. A job becomes empty. A friendship loses magnetism. A desire dies. The same room feels wrong. You do not hate it. You simply can't inhabit it. This is why the Arcturians confirm that the transition is no longer optional. Not because a being is forcing you, because the old operating system cannot be reinstalled once your frequency changed. Application in your life is immediate. If you notice that you can no longer tolerate what you once tolerated, do not shame yourself for it. That is not instability. That is precision emerging. Your nervous system is becoming a truth detector. And as the Arcturians transmit, the role of certain individuals is now clear. Those who can remain coherent during the transition become stabilizers, not saviors. Stabilizers. You are not here to rescue anyone from their lesson. You are here to hold a frequency that makes unnecessary collapse less likely. Reflect on this. If the old cycle is ending, then the most dangerous behavior is trying to keep it alive through your attention. Every time you indulge the old loop, you feed it. Every time you return to what you outgrew, you reinforce the outdated structure. The Arcturians transmit that the end of a cycle is not a punishment. It is a graduation. And graduation feels uncomfortable only when you keep dragging your old identity into the new classroom. The Arcturians are monitoring the planetary transition in real time, and they confirm something that many humans feel but hesitate to name. The transition has already begun. This is not a forecast. It is an observed reality. The Arcturian Council does not speak in the language of hope. They speak in the language of systems. And in systems, a transition begins the moment feedback loops accelerate. That is what you are seeing and experiencing now: faster feedback, shorter cycles, quicker consequences, rapid exposure of what is incoherent. As the Arcturians transmit, when a planet shifts frequency, three things occur simultaneously. Internal conflict becomes louder. Repetition becomes exhausting. Alignment becomes unavoidable. You can see this in your own day-to-day. Internal conflict becomes louder because the old world allowed contradiction to hide. You could want freedom and still choose chains, and the timeline would delay the consequences. You could say one thing and do another, and reality would tolerate the split. But now, contradiction creates immediate friction. The moment your thoughts fight your actions, your body feels it. The moment you betray your truth, your energy drops sharply. The moment you compromise your coherence, life becomes strangely resistant. Repetition becomes exhausting because the old timeline thrived on loops. The loop kept you busy, not free. The loop gave you problems to solve instead of truth to embody. But in the transition, loops lose their reward. You do not get the same dopamine, the same emotional hit, the same identity confirmation. The pattern becomes heavy. You begin to feel how much energy you have been leaking into non-evolution. Alignment becomes unavoidable because the new planetary phase requires conscious participants. The Arcturians confirm, the new phase is not for unconscious drifting. The old timeline let people sleepwalk. The new timeline does not punish sleepwalkers. It simply does not respond to them with the same access. That is why people feel stuck. They are not cursed. They are incoherent. And the field reads incoherence as noise. A story again, because stories reveal the mechanics. There is a man, call him Elias, who spent years procrastinating a decision to leave an environment that drained him. He told himself it was strategic patience. He told himself he was waiting for the right sign. He was not. He was bargaining with fear. In the old cycle, he could delay for years. The consequences were spaced out, but in the transition, each delay produced immediate compression. Bills tightened, relationships strained, sleep deteriorated. His body began to reject the indecision. Finally, one morning, he woke up and felt something oddly calm. He wasn't panicking anymore. He wasn't searching for proof. He simply knew. This is no longer viable. He took a small, coherent action, one email, one boundary, one appointment. And within days, reality responded with openings that had been invisible before. Not because the universe rewarded his intention, because his signal stabilized. This is what the Arcturians mean when they say reality responds to coherence, not desire. Desire can be fragmented. Desire can be fantasy. Coherence is measurable. Coherence has trajectory. Coherence is behavior that remains aligned even when nothing dramatic happens. The Arcturians confirm they do not intervene. They stabilize. They do not guide emotions. They guide systems. This is crucial because many humans are addicted to emotional spirituality. Big feelings, big visions, big signs. But the new timeline is not built on stimulation. It is built on consistency under silence. The Arcturians observe who remains aligned when no one praises them, who continues the practice when no miracle appears, who chooses the clean action without needing proof. This is why certain opportunities disappear quietly. It is why certain relationships dissolve without conflict. It is why certain paths lose energy. The system is removing friction as you become more coherent, because friction exists to test fluctuation. Once your signal stabilizes, the test changes. Instead of pressure, you receive access. Instead of obstacles, you receive precision. Instead of chaos, you receive clear timing. Now place the fixed CTA here exactly as required. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, a trilogy that teaches you how to activate your 5D connection with the Arcturian masters through 12 energetic portals. Practical techniques, activation protocols, and rituals that awaken your stellar DNA. From amplified intuition to direct communication with spiritual guides. Attention! Limited edition. The link to get your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. The deeper reflection is this: if the transition has already begun, then your job is not to get ready. Your job is to recognize you are already in it and choose whether you will be a reactive participant or a coherent stabilizer. The Arcturians confirm, this is no longer optional because the field has already shifted. You are not waiting for the wave. You are inside it. As the Arcturians transmit, the transition separates reaction from coherence. This is not moral language. It is technical language. Reaction is a fragmented signal. Coherence is a unified signal. Reaction can be intense, emotional, convincing, and still produce delay. Coherence can be quiet, subtle, almost boring, and produce rapid transformation. Why? Because the field does not respond to intensity. It responds to stability. Let's define coherence in a way your nervous system can recognize. Coherence means your thoughts, emotions, choices, and actions begin moving in the same direction, even if slowly, even if imperfectly. Incoherence means you want one thing, fear another, act in a third direction, and hesitate in between. The field reads incoherence as noise. Noise creates delay. Delay creates repetition. Repetition creates the illusion of stagnation. In everyday life, reaction looks like this. You receive a message, and your body tightens. You interpret the message as threat. You respond to the threat with defense. You then feel drained, regretful, and unclear. Reaction is not just an emotion. It is a pattern of signal collapse. You leak energy into protection, justification, and control. Coherence looks different. You receive a message, and you pause. You notice your body without correcting it. You choose alignment over repetition. You respond cleanly, or you do not respond at all. Coherence is not passivity. It is signal refinement. Here is a complete story. A woman, call her Sarah, was triggered repeatedly by a family member who used subtle guilt to control her. In the old timeline, she would either comply and resent, or rebel and explode. Both were reactions. Both kept her trapped in the loop. Then during the transition, she began practicing coherence. She would feel the guilt attempt arise in her body, breathe once, and respond with one sentence that matched her truth. No argument, no defense, no explanation. The family member escalated at first, because manipulation relies on emotional hooks. But because Sarah did not react, the hook could not attach. Within weeks, the dynamic changed permanently. Not because the other person evolved, because the old timeline lost traction around her. That is how timelines collapse, not by force, but by loss of participation. The Arcturians teach that timelines are not chosen once, they are selected continuously. Every coherent action keeps you inside the new trajectory. Every incoherent repetition pulls you back toward the old one. This is why the transition feels subtle but irreversible. Nothing dramatic happens, but returning feels impossible. Reality has already adjusted its expectations of you. Now place CTA of Engagement 1 during this topic exactly as required. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. And at the end of Topic 3, place the membership CTA exactly as required. If this message ignited something within you, and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. Now the deeper transmission, the Arcturians detect coherence as consistency under silence. They observe who remains aligned when no feedback appears, who continues to act in alignment when the old timeline stops responding. This is why some of you feel like you are in a strange in-between phase, detached from the old world, but not fully inside the new one. That discomfort is not confusion. It is transition pressure. It is compression. It is the field testing signal stability. A cliffhanger naturally emerges here. If coherence is the key, then why does resistance intensify right before the timeline locks in? And why do so many people sabotage themselves at that exact threshold? Stay with me, because the Arcturians describe this next phase with precision. The Arcturians confirm that the planetary transition requires stabilizers, not saviors. A savior mindset is still anchored in the old cycle: hierarchy, rescue, dependence, emotional drama. A stabilizer is different. A stabilizer is a node, an individual whose inner coherence allows new frequencies to anchor into the planetary field without distortion. And a planetary transition is not carried by crowds, it is stabilized by nodes. As the Arcturians transmit, when mission agents hold coherence together, something subtle but irreversible occurs. The field stops being theoretical. It becomes structural. A single coherent individual stabilizes their own reality. But when multiple individuals sustain coherence simultaneously, the planetary field begins to reorganize. The Arcturians call this coherence clustering, not an emotional group, not a movement, not a trend. An energetic overlap where stable signals form anchors, and anchors allow higher frequency timelines to remain present without collapsing. You may have noticed something recently. You feel less alone, even if nothing changed externally. You feel a strange internal seriousness in the collective. You see people making similar choices across the world without coordinating. They are leaving the same distractions. They are rejecting the same noise. They are refusing the same manipulation. This is not mass belief. It is coordination without communication. A story. Two strangers in different countries both stop engaging in the same kind of argument at the same time. They both choose silence over defense. They both step away from identity performance. They both start waking at odd hours with a sense of mission seriousness. They have never met, but their coherence becomes part of a larger stabilization lattice. And within that lattice, fear narratives weaken. Chaos loses magnetism. Manipulation requires more effort because coherence creates clarity, and clarity dissolves illusion automatically. Now include the second engagement CTA during this topic exactly as required. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. The application is practical. If you are a stabilizer node, you will notice that destabilizing yourself now has quicker consequences. You feel it immediately. That does not mean you are failing. It means your coherence is no longer isolated. You are part of a larger stabilization field. That is why you feel the weight of responsibility. But it is not a burden. It is impact. The Arcturians do not need leaders. They need holders. People who remain present, who choose alignment even when nothing rewards it, who do not abandon coherence just because others do. That quiet commitment allows new timelines to take root. The golden age does not arrive all at once. It stabilizes slowly through clusters of coherence expanding outward. Here's the cliffhanger. If clusters are forming, then why are your perceptions sharpening? Why are dreams changing? Why does silence feel protective? And why does the new timeline respond faster when you stop narrating your path? That is the next mechanism. The Arcturians transmit that the new timeline does not respond to effort. It responds to clarity. And clarity increases when noise disappears. Silence is not spiritual discipline for its own sake. It is signal refinement. When you stop explaining yourself, your frequency sharpens. When you stop justifying, your energy stabilizes. When you stop narrating your inner process, reality begins to listen more closely, because your signal is no longer scattered across words. As mission agents mature inside the planetary transition, perception begins to accelerate. Not emotionally, structurally. You start knowing things before they happen, not as dramatic visions, but as certainty. You sense when a situation is no longer viable before it collapses. You feel when someone is not aligned long before words reveal it. Places speak to you without language. Some environments feel heavy immediately. Others feel clean, open, alive. You do not analyze it. You simply know whether you belong there or not. Dreams often change at this stage. They become clearer, more symbolic, sometimes strangely accurate. Not fantasies, but previews. The Arcturians describe this as timeline sampling. In the new phase, information reaches you before form. But too much talking pulls energy upward into the mind. Silence lets information stay integrated. This is why many awakened agents become socially quieter, not distant, but selective. Silence protects perception. Now include the third engagement CTA during this topic exactly as required. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. A complete story. A man, call him Jalen, used to talk through everything. He processed out loud. He explained his choices to people who did not understand. He debated his intuition, and he remained confused. Then one week he stopped. He stopped explaining. He stopped seeking validation. He simply did one coherent action per day without commentary. Within 2 weeks, his life began answering faster. Not through miracles, through removal. People who drained him stopped calling. Confusing opportunities disappeared. A new invitation appeared that felt oddly obvious. He realized the field was responding to his silence because his signal had become stable enough to be read clearly. This is why the Arcturians emphasize, the new timeline does not need you to speak your truth. It needs you to embody it without commentary. When you stay silent, the old timeline loses its grip. When you stay silent, perception deepens. When you stay silent, the new timeline accelerates to meet you. Cliffhanger. If the new timeline responds faster to coherence, why does resistance spike right before a lock-in? Why do doubts appear without reason, obstacles feel exaggerated, and people react strangely to you at the exact moment you are closest to stabilization? This is the compression phase. The Arcturians describe a phase that many stabilizers misinterpret. Compression. Resistance intensifies right before a timeline locks in, not because something is wrong, but because something is ending. The old timeline survives through familiarity, repetition, and emotional hooks that once worked. But when your coherence stabilizes, those hooks lose power. So resistance concentrates. Doubt appears without reason. Delays feel heavier. Small obstacles feel exaggerated. People react differently to you. This is not sabotage. It is signal interference, the last attempt of the old cycle to reclaim your attention. The Arcturians transmit that this phase is short but intense. Old fears resurface. Old identities return asking for negotiation. Old temptations appear in refined form. Not to punish you, but to confirm stability. Most beings fail here because they interpret the pressure as a sign to stop. They return to explanation, to reaction, to noise, and the lock-in does not complete. But when you stay still during compression, something irreversible happens. The resistance collapses, not because you fought it, but because it found no traction. Once the lock-in occurs, resistance drops sharply. Events align faster. Decisions feel cleaner. Energy returns without effort. The new timeline does not announce itself. It simply begins responding as if it always knew you would arrive. Now place the required ebook CTA at the end of Topic 6 exactly as required. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, a trilogy that teaches you how to activate your 5D connection with the Arcturian Masters through 12 energetic portals. Practical techniques, activation protocols, and rituals that awaken your stellar DNA. From amplified intuition to direct communication with spiritual guides. Attention, limited edition. The link to get your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. A complete story. A woman, call her Naira, was days away from leaving a collapsing identity. She had already become coherent. Then compression hit. Suddenly, her ex returned with nostalgia. Suddenly, a safe job offer appeared that looked tempting. Suddenly, her family became unusually needy. None of it was evil. It was just the old timeline presenting familiar gravity. She noticed the pull, breathed once, and did nothing reactive. She refused to negotiate with what she already knew. And then, like a rope snapping, the entire field shifted. Within a month, she was in a new environment, with cleaner relationships, with a sense of time that felt different. That is lock-in, cliffhanger. After lock-in, something fundamental changes, your relationship with time itself. You stop rushing. not because you became passive, but because you gained temporal discernment. You begin moving only when time opens. That is the signature of a stabilized mission agent. The Arcturians transmit. The Galactic Confederation is not a story of salvation. It is not a fleet waiting to rescue humanity. It is a coordination architecture, an intelligence network formed by civilizations that survived their own planetary transitions not through dominance, but through coherence. Their purpose is singular: stabilize worlds at the precise moment when consciousness evolves faster than the structures built to contain it. Earth is now inside that moment. You are not chosen in the mythic sense. Chosen implies preference. It implies ego. What actually happens is positioning. When your coherence reaches a threshold, the field reorganizes around you. You are placed where your signal causes the least distortion and the greatest stabilization. Mission agents are not leaders of people. They are interfaces between higher-order intelligence and dense reality, between future timelines and present systems, between coherence and chaos. An interface does not seek attention. It transmits. This is why your life may look ordinary from the outside. You still work. You still handle relationships. You still exist inside the system. But internally, your operating mode is different. Your nervous system regulates faster. Your reactions shorten. Your recovery time decreases. This is not self-help. This is operational readiness. The Confederation identifies agents by response under pressure: who stabilizes when others escalate, who becomes clearer when others panic, who simplifies when others complicate. Those become nodes. Nodes form networks. Networks allow planetary transitions to occur without collapse. Now we anchor the Golden Age correctly. The Golden Age is not built by those who escape chaos. It is built by those who can stand inside it without becoming it. Chaos is not the destination. Chaos is the sorting mechanism. It reveals what is real and what is performance. And the Arcturians transmit something precise. The future is created by who remains coherent when the timeline shakes. That is why stabilizers matter. Not because they are special, because they are stable enough for reality to build upon. A full story to close. A man, call him Orin, was once reactive, loud, desperate to be understood. Then the transition refined him. He learned to pause. He learned to stop explaining. He learned to act with timing instead of urgency. One day, his city experienced a collective stress event: sudden disruption, heightened fear, uncertainty. People spiraled. Orin did not preach. He did not rescue. He simply became coherent. He helped one neighbor breathe. He simplified one problem. He became a calm point in the storm, and that calm spread, not as inspiration, but as nervous system regulation. This is how the Golden Age forms, not as fantasy, but as structure. Calm, consistent nodes making collapse unnecessary. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.